Hello, everybody. Welcome to Dive In with Dom. So in this session that we've got today, we're going to, as we do each time, we look at a particular facet of inquiry and a place that I think is of interest, a place that I see people either get stuck in their practice or people have questions about. And you may remember that last time we looked at the issue of storytelling and the story and the role of the story in inquiry. And today we're going to look at something different, which is problem solving. And that really brings us to the question of action. Like, what are we doing? What are we going to do? So in this, we're going to discover how to incorporate this into our inquiry. And what are some of the traps? How do we get stuck? How does it limit our inquiry? So this Dive In with Dom is a public session. It's open to anybody who wants to come along, and we have people here of all different experience levels. Some people totally new to inquiry, and some people have been inquiring for many years. Maybe put up your hand if you're new, if this is your first time here. Nice to see. Oh, we got a number of people. Carla, Margaret, Ida, and then I missed a couple of others. Oh, Lucia. Yeah, great. Very good. Welcome, Freddie. Great to have you join us. So it's going to be, it's a practical session. We're going to talk a bit, and then you'll also get to go and have a little look for yourself to see what you find out. That's really what matters here. We don't want to just be a theoretical talk shop. So because it's public, because there's a whole lot of, people here of all different backgrounds, you want to bear that in mind. We will be recording the talk, we'll be recording the Q&C and the discussion at the end. There'll be an opportunity to do a little exercise, and that is not recorded. So if you want to do the exercise, you'll find yourself in a breakout room with another person, and you can explore for yourselves a bit, see what you see together. And that's confidential. Nobody knows about that, and we all agree to keep it that way. But everything that happens in this session is recorded. We share these sessions on YouTube, so if you're interested in seeing some of the past sessions, if you haven't seen them before, there's a whole collection, a couple of years of sessions up there now, so you can go and look into different angles of inquiry and yeah, hopefully find something useful, something to support you in your practice. We're going to begin as we usually do with just a short practice. So a short, and this time we're going to do a little sensing practice. So an opportunity just to get more in touch with ourselves, with our felt sense, and then we will take things from there. So you don't have to be sitting in any particular way, any particular posture, just want to be comfortable. And as we begin, take a moment. You might remember that orientation of friendly interest, especially if you're new. How is it to consider approaching yourself? That's what we're doing, right? We're diving into your inner world. You want to approach yourself with some kind of friendly, curious, open interest. Like you don't know what you're going to find, and you're open, you're curious, and in a friendly way. You're not kind of stomping in there. You're not seeing yourself as a problem. We'll see more about that just now. But you are just being friendly and interested. And you can let your eyes close for the first part of this. And take a breath. Notice how you're feeling, just where you're at right now in your day. You've made this time, this space to come and be with yourself, to hear something about inquiry. Inquiry is really all about you and your experience. And so now bring your attention down to your right foot and take a moment to get in touch with the whole of your right foot, toes, the sole of the foot, contact with the ground. What's it like in your right foot today? What is the experience of your right foot? Maybe you don't feel much. You might notice, oh, I'm just not really that much in touch with my foot right now. Or maybe you're aware that, oh, my foot's cold. Notice that right away. Maybe it's an ache or a pain or feeling of strength or aliveness. So sense your foot and then let the sensing, the direct, immediate sensing, move up your leg, sense your right ankle and your right lower leg, shin and the calf. Getting in touch with the immediacy of the sensation. So that immediate contact with what you can actually sense, that's the key. I think you're letting your consciousness inhabit your right lower leg fully, or a little more fully. And then sense your right knee, kind of shining the light in that right knee, sensing it, feeling it, whatever you find there. And then letting the sensing move up your right thigh. Sensing into your right thigh, the inner thigh, the outer thigh, hamstring, quads. The whole dimensionality of your right thigh. Remember that if you can't sense anything, or if there's a gap, like that's a sensation too. So there's nothing wrong here. You can't get it wrong. If you don't sense anything, then feel that, feel the absence, feel the gap. Sense your right hip, the joint, front of the hip. And then around into your buttock, contact with the chair. Perhaps the weight of your body coming down, being supported in the chair. And then sense the whole of your right leg, from the foot all the way up to the hip and the buttock. And take a breath with that. Now shift your attention to your right fingers. Feeling your right fingertips, fingernails, maybe each individual finger. And then the knuckles and the palm of your right hand. You don't have to keep it dead still. You can allow a little movement if that helps you get in touch. So you're sensing the consciousness of your right hand, how your right hand is appearing in your consciousness, in your sensate awareness. Sense your right wrist and let the sensing move up into your right forearm, filling up your right forearm. It's like every cell is coming online, waking up. every muscle fiber, every bone, every tissue. And sensing into your elbow, and then up your right upper arm. Getting in touch. It's a big thing. Really get in touch. And then continuing up into your right shoulder, under the arm, shoulder joint, muscles of the shoulder, your shoulder blade, all of that right shoulder. And you're noticing, how does it feel? How do you sense it? Does it feel tense or relaxed? No right or wrong, just being in touch. Then sense the whole of your right arm from the fingers all the way up to the shoulder. So it should feel exactly however you're experiencing it right now. Might feel good, might feel uncomfortable. Exactly what you're in touch with now is exactly how it should feel. And then let your attention shift across into your left shoulder. So in the same way, kind of sensing into the muscles and the skin and the bones and the joints, cells and molecules, the very texture of your shoulder, your left shoulder, the aches and pains and aliveness or fleshiness. And flowing down, sensing your left upper arm, left elbow, left forearm, all the way to your left wrist and hand and fingers. Taking the time to get in touch. Those left fingertips, like so sensitive. What are they touching? What are they up against? It's the air temperature, clothing, your skin of your other hand, whatever it is. And then sense the whole of your left arm from the shoulder to the fingers. Inhabiting your left arm. And then come to your left hip. left hip, the left buttock, the fleshiness of your buttock against the chair. Or the boniness, or the muscularity, however it is. And your thigh, left thigh. So you're sensing flows down your left thigh, your left knee. Direct, immediate contact with whatever the sensation may be. Not thinking about it, you're not imagining it, you're not making it up. You're noticing the actual sensed experience. And then down your left lower leg. Into your left ankle. And bringing that same friendly, curious, open interest all the way down to your left foot. Your left toes, contact with the ground. And then a moment to sense the whole of the left leg. Now sense both arms and both legs together. You're sensing all your limbs, kind of like a frame. And then include the sensations of the rest of your body. Might be a whole lot going on in the center there. Pelvis and belly and chest, neck and head. Again, take a moment to notice how you're feeling. What's your feeling state? How are you feeling? How has it affected you to do the sensing? So you're in touch with your feelings in the same immediate way, just noticing what's the feeling that's here. Noticing your mind, how your mind is. Is it a lot of talking, commenting, judging, curious, interested? Maybe you've got something on your mind that's really occupying you. Maybe some kind of problem. Some problem that you have. And then add listening. So to your sensing, your bodily sensing, you add your auditory sensing, sensing the sound, listening. Sounds of your environment, sounds of your breathing, sounds of this meeting. And when you're ready, you can gently add looking. Slowly open your eyes, let the light come in, your whole visual field. So what's it like when your visual field enters your experience? So sensing, listening, looking. Yeah, being present and a little in touch with feeling as well. Feeling, thinking. All these dimensions of our experience. So as you know, many of you know, with inquiry, in a sense, this is what we're exploring. We're exploring this inner world. And this inner world of our experience really includes everything. It includes our perceptions, feelings, the meanings and the thoughts, understandings, the knowings of our mind. And it includes our impulses, our actions, our urges towards action, our bellies. So today we want to look at this thing of problems. And I guess I partly thought of this as a topic because one of the things that I see that happens in some people's inquiry is they sit down and they have a problem, right? We have some kind of problem in our lives or a problem in our process, and we want to solve it, right? We want to fix the problem. We want to do something about the problem. And it's possible to kind of sit down and to spend a lot of time trying to figure out what to do, or what am I going to do about this problem, or how can I solve this problem? And sometimes that's useful, and sometimes it isn't. Sometimes it's kind of feels optimal, feels like it's getting somewhere useful and valuable, and sometimes it doesn't. So we want to look into, like, how is that? What is it that makes it be one way or the other? And oftentimes what people are engaged with is trying to figure out what to do. Like, what am I going to do about this situation? And it can be an inner problem or an outer problem. So the problem may be something going on in your life, something that somebody is doing, some situation that you're finding yourself in. It might be something to do with your health. That might be something to do with your relationships, your job. All these kind of things can present problems, right? And it might be something in your inner process. You're like, oh, I've got this problem of this anxiety. It doesn't go away. Here I am dealing with it again. What can I do about this problem? So in all of these cases, right, the response is, what can I do about it? How can I figure out what to do? And this can be very compelling, especially when there is some kind of external circumstance going on, and even more so if it has some kind of time constraint. So I want to note that, that's a real thing. So sometimes that is the case, that there is something and there is a time constraint, and you do need to figure out what you're going to do. So it's not that that's not valid, right? That can be very valid. And indeed, bringing your inquiry into discerning, well, what really do I need to do here? What is right action for me? Or what is the appropriate thing for me to do? Like, that is a real inquiry question, right? That's something that you can sort of look into in your experience and explore. And there's often a difference, right? Well, let's say that can happen in different ways. So I think we need to bring ourselves firstly to this thing of the problem itself, right? And to really what our inquiry invites us to do is to, for a minute, for a moment, or maybe a few minutes, park trying to solve the problem. So we have to be willing to take a few minutes to go, okay, I know there's a problem. I know I want to do something about it. But first of all, let's just take some time to find out what's actually going on here. Right? Let's find out the what of it. Yeah. So one thing that can be useful to really do is to take some time to actually look into what is the problem itself. What actually is it? Right? What is this situation, or what is the thing that you're grappling with, that you're trying to solve, apart from solving it, just to identify clearly what it is. Because sometimes we kind of get into knee-jerk reaction about things, making a whole bunch of assumptions, and we haven't sat down and actually looked at what it is. So that's one thing that can be useful to do. Like really take the time to see what is it, what is this problem? And then you can go a little step further and you can begin to contemplate, well, what makes it a problem? How come this is a problem? Right? What makes it a problem, right? As opposed to a situation or something that you're just in and dealing with. And this is where things start to get interesting, because oftentimes what will make it a problem is that it is bringing about something, some kind of response in you, or some kind of reaction. Right? You might be coming from some kind of reaction. And this begins to point us to really then the next thing that we really need to look at, which is if this is the circumstance, or this is the issue, or this is the lay of the land, and we've kind of clarified that a little bit, then the next thing we've got to see is, what is that bringing up in me here? How am I meeting this problem? Right? What is going on in here? And this is where it really starts to get interesting. For example, so a lot of the time we start off and we just think, oh, it's about the circumstance, it's the problem, or it's the thing, that's what it is. I got to figure out how to solve it. We don't realize that a whole part of what is making it feel problematic may actually be internal to you, might be in your own psyche. An example, maybe there's some situation going on and your superego is giving you a terrible time about it. It's beating you up about it. How could you have done that? Or how can you allow this to happen? And you're feeling bad about it, and your superego is on your case, and you feel bad or deficient or, judged and worthless, and all the ways the superego can make you feel. Yeah. So your inner critic is just hammering you. Now, it may be that if you recognize that, you recognize, oh, actually, I'm feeling so terrible about this thing because my inner critic is on my case. And you can work with it a bit to gain some space from that inner critic, from that superego. You might suddenly realize, oh, actually, it's not a problem at all. It was only a problem because there was this voice in my head making me feel terrible about it. And, I think of an example of, it's a trivial example. I've only been skiing a couple of times in my life. I'm really bad. And I remember one time I went many, many years ago, and, I was really bad and I kept falling over. It was unpleasant. And it was accompanied by a whole lot of judgment. So I felt terrible about it. Right? So I was feeling bad and useless and comparing myself to everybody else. And, all the kind of things that our inner critic can make us do. Fast forward 20 years or so, and I went again, and I was no better. In fact, I was probably significantly worse, right? And it wasn't a problem. There was just no problem. Like I could be as bad as I was, and there was no superego about, there wasn't anything on my case about it. There literally was no problem. Right? I was just useless at skiing and I fell over a lot and it was fine. right? So you see, same circumstance, same kind of things going on. In one situation, it felt awful. It felt terrible. I felt ashamed and like I have to figure something out and, all that. And in the other, literally no problem, no issue, nothing. Right? So this points us to the fact that the experience of the problem, or at least part of the experience of the problem, has to do with where we're meeting it, where we're coming from in actually meeting that problem. If you're coming from a place of your superego, right, that will certainly add to things. Let's put it that way. That will add to the sense of pressure and charge and need to solve something and feeling bad about not solving it. Your superego can make your life horrible. And so inquiry can help us begin to clarify this, can help us begin to see where am I coming from that is contributing to my experience of the problem. I want to be clear here. I'm not saying that there isn't a circumstance that might be need dealing with. We'll come to that in a minute. But we're first taking the time to inquire into, to look into what is the contribution of what's going on in here to the experience of the problem. Now, as you know, in your inquiry, as you go encountering, there are so many things that you may encounter in your inner world, right? So some of you begin to encounter deficiencies, right? So you sense like you feel like you have no strength, or you feel like there's no kindness, or you feel like there's no joy, no enjoyment. Now, if you have a deep understanding of these things, well, put it this way, if you don't have an understanding of these things, you think the problem is, oh, there's an absence of something, right? I need to fix this problem because I just don't feel like I have what it takes. Or I need to fix this problem because I don't have any joy. I don't feel any enjoyment in the situation, and that's a problem, right? So I've got to fix the outside. So we can take all kinds of actions predicated on trying to fix the problem as if the problem is completely out there, when actually part of the problem is that we're coming at it, we're experiencing it from a place of deficiency, from a place of an absence, a disconnection within ourselves. So people actually do this all the time. They try and solve the circumstances of their lives to manage the absence of various qualities, absence of joy, absence of value, absence of power, absence of will, absence of love. So we try to fix all the problems on the outside, which is, it's not without, it can be useful. It can certainly go some of the way. But when we recognize, oh, I'm coming from a place of disconnection within myself, that opens up different possibilities. Because then you may know, especially if you are deep into the practice of inquiry, that where there is something like that, that can be worked with, right? It's possible to open that up. You might find that you're coming from some young place, some part of your history, right? So the whole way that you're relating to this problem is through the lens of being a little kid, of how something felt to you when you were 5 or 8 or 2. Right? Often we find that like really deep in how we're reacting to problems, like there's this feeling like a really intense need to solve a problem, like I've got to sort this out, I've got to fix it. And when you really look into where that's coming from, it's coming from some very young part of you. Right? And the risk then, of course, is that in the worst case, we find solutions or we take actions that manage the inner child, manage our 3-year-old, that if we weren't unconsciously caught up in that, really might not be the things that we do. The things that as an adult, as a being, as a being with resources and capacities, that we would choose. That's at the extreme, that we kind of act in that kind of way. And in a milder form, we might still come to the same solutions, but it has so much suffering in it, right? It has all the difficulty and suffering and intensity and need of these unrecognized young parts of us. So part of the possibility of inquiry is to take the time to pause from solving the problem and to look directly at the experience of the problem, the experience of the issue, and where we are coming from in meeting that. To bring that into the light, to clarify that some more, to allow that to open up. And, often as we do that, as the inquiry opens and deepens, we find some essential quality might start coming forward, like maybe the very inner support that you need, or the inner sense of power that you need to be with it. Oftentimes, what makes something a problem will be that we feel like we can't be with it. I can't actually be with this. It's like, or it's bringing up some kind of difficult feeling, like powerlessness or helplessness, or I think those are two particularly difficult things with intractable problems. You might feel powerless, might feel helpless, might feel like you don't have the capacity. Right? Might feel like the world is cruel or difficult. The minute we can begin to recognize that all of those are parts of our inner world, right, that we can open to, that basically need our care, our loving attention, our friendly interest, and that they can be doorways to the actual qualities that we need to really meet the circumstances of our lives. It's a way that the inquiry can become truly transformational. That our problems move from being problems to being actually portals to our growth and development. And then there's the possibility of, if you come through to some quality of presence, maybe you're in touch with your sense of strength, or in touch with a sense of realness, or of your own goodness. Then it is very interesting at that moment to kind of look again at the problem, to say, okay, so now that I'm feeling this, now that I've worked through some facet of the issue, how does it seem now? How does it seem from here? You can ask that question in a whole different way, like, okay, so how does it seem from here? What do I actually need to do? What do I need to do from here, from this perspective? Might be the same, might be the same thing, and it might be very different. Might be very, very different. Yeah. So that's really the kind of the opportunity. The opportunity is to, turn inwards, to move from just the external orientation of trying to fix something, to actually look at the kind of many layers and facets of what that is bringing up within you, to clarify those, to let those become more clear. Because wherever there's some kind of intense compulsive reaction, if you're reacting or if you're like sitting there going, oh my God, I have to sort this out. I have to sort this out. You can feel if that's coming from a place of presence or not. You can feel if that's coming from something within you that feels grounded and solid and realistic, or curious and open and playful, or tender and caring, or if it's coming from some sense of panic and urgency and need. And it's not that those are bad things. They're not bad things, but they're important. They're actually very important to kind of welcome, to bring them in, to bring them into the light, to open up to them and explore them so that we can find out more like what's making that happen. Like, oh, how come I'm experiencing this in such a difficult way? What is that actually bringing up? Oh, okay. Oh, something in me that feels young. All righty. Then okay, there's something young here. I'm responding to this from the young part of me. Then you can explore that. So I'm just opening up a different possibility. It's the possibility of inquiring into the experience of the problem and then seeing what action flows from there and how what you need to do or your response to the problem or any of that changes and feels different as the place that you're coming from changes in the inquiry. So I think that's pretty much what I wanted to share with you this evening, or the what I wanted to put out there for you to contemplate. And what we'll do is just take a few minutes now to just mull it over for yourself, see what you see, right? And the way we're going to do that is you'll find yourself in a breakout room. There'll be two people, and just take 5 minutes, right? You'll just have 5 minutes, and in that 5 minutes, you want to think of a problem, right? See if you can find a problem in your life, something that you regard as a problem, right? And think about, like, just see how you're holding it, see what the problem is, and then take a little bit of time to just look into, like, how's that affecting me? What's it like to be in that? Where am I meeting this problem from, right? And see how it is to just shed a little more light on that. Yeah. So you can take that 5 minutes to see a problem, see if you can find some kind of problem. And if you can't, you can just talk about your relationship to problems in general, right? If you can't think of a specific instance. And then to really, if you do think of some instance, to see where are you meeting it from? Like, what's going on here that makes it a problem, right? And so you'll do that for 5 minutes, and then you'll have another 2 minutes, right? Your partner so the other person will time you. So they'll time you 5 minutes, and then they'll give you another 2 minutes. And then the 2 minutes, you want to just notice, okay, so how does my experience of the problem, how is it affected as you've noticed something a bit more about how you're relating to it, right? Where you're coming from. Do you understand the exercise? So it's kind of in 3 parts. Describe the problem a bit, explore a little bit where you're coming from in relation to the problem, how you feel about it, like what parts of you get activated, what makes it a problem for you, what you're sensing as you talk about that problem. And then take a further 2 minutes to just notice, oh, okay, so how does my experience of the problem change by doing that? Okay, just see. It's just a little experiment. Okay, so one person will do that, 5 plus 2, and then the other person will do it 5 minutes plus 2. And remember, in that 5 minutes, not trying to solve it, right? Not trying to solve the problem. You're just looking into your experience of it. Okay. Any questions? Any questions about that? Is that clear? I will say, if you don't want to do the exercise, please drop off now and then rejoin in about 15 minutes. Because otherwise Susan or Mike will put you in a breakout room with somebody else and then they'll find themselves without a partner. So if you don't want to do the exercise, drop off now, come back in 15 minutes. Otherwise, you're going to find yourself in a room with a partner. And if you haven't done this kind of exercise before, a reminder that, well, not a reminder if you're new to it. So when you're the witness, you're just keeping the time, use your phone or whatever to keep the time, and you don't say anything. You're just a silent witness. You just let the other person do their exploration, and you have the privilege of sitting there as a fellow diver, seeing them go wherever they go with it. And then when you do your inquiry, you do your exploration, you're doing it just for you. It's not for their benefit. It's really your own exploration of this, of the topic of what we're looking into. Okay, so just for you to find out something new or something fresh, do this little experiment. Good. So we're going to see you back here in, so it's 7 minutes plus 7 minutes, and we'll add 5 minutes for coming and going and anything else you need to do. So let's call it 20 minutes. So
so you want 20 minutes, Dom?
Yeah, I'll make it 20 minutes, Susan. I think that's
Okay.
fine. You can say hello and meet the other person. And we will be back here at 37 past the hour. All
Okay.
right. See you in a bit.
I've got them set up here. Let's go.
Okay, so here we are. Welcome back. And yeah, I want to somebody. Oh, I guess we can leave it like this. Yeah, so I'm curious, how was that experiment for you? What did you find? What do you discover about problems? So somebody had their hand up and then down, disappeared. If you have Hannah, if you do have a question, just raise your hand. And let's see. Anybody want to share something? Yeah, Trust, go ahead.
Hello.
Yes, hi.
My problem was my next door neighbor's hedge growing into the public footpath. And I was so annoyed because he never keeps it tidy. And my super ego said, go buy yourself a hedge cutter, cut the hedge, and everything is hunky-dory. Then I made an inquiry, not today, but I think yesterday. And the little girl in me was very reluctant to cut the hedge. Very reluctant. And I hadn't taken that into account. Yeah, as the superego knows it all, does it, and easy peasy, everything will get done and sorted. But I was so pleased I'd done that inquiry and included my reluctant little girl who was exploited when she was little, who was, and this time the neighbor then said, well, Irmtraut, if it bothers you that much, you cut the hedge. And I was really gobsmacked, really gobsmacked. And I said, well, it's not my hedge. And physically, I can't do it. So it was interesting to see the process of inquiry.
Yeah.
That the superego said, okay, you can cut the hedge. She said you can. Go and get yourself a little lightweight trimmer and do it. But I was pleased I did the inquiry, because I feel that I would have overlooked this reluctant little girl.
Right, right. So how does, as you include that part of you, right, how does the whole thing seem to you now?
Well, now the hedge can grow wherever. It just, okay, it will not annoy me in a certain degree anymore, because it's like the little girl, I don't want the little girl to be exploited or feel exploited as it had been when it was little.
Right. So she was feeling that way, kind of linked somehow with the fact that the hedge is growing and all of that kind of thing. Right. So now, yeah, so now you can be with that part of you in a different way. It sounds like a caring way not to feel exploited.
And it actually, this, excuse my language, I was swearing, this bloody hedge, and why can't he? And now this bloody hedge doesn't feel that bloody anymore.
Right, right. So your whole experience of it has changed.
It has changed to the degree that I feel more balanced about it.
So how did you see that, Omtrust?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
It really was an interesting topic you brought up here.
Right.
And I feel that I feel more compassionate about this little girl.
Yes, yes.
That I may have overlooked if I had just listened to the superego.
Right, right. Wonderful. Well, I'm very happy to hear that.
Yeah.
Looking into your problem brought you to some compassion.
Yes.
Gentleness, and then changes your whole experience of the thing.
Yeah, and the anger also has gone. Whether it's because I expressed it, I don't know. But it could also have been the fact that this little girl has been included, it's been recognized and embraced, and therefore
Yeah, so the charge kind of goes out of the whole thing.
Yeah, quite.
Beautiful.
So that was a good topic. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, I'm glad that was useful. Yeah, Carla, go ahead.
Yes.
Hi.
I can say something about my problem.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just at the beginning of inquiring into it because it's a big problem. It's a problem of feeling unfulfilled.
Right.
Yeah. By my job. By not having a partner in this moment. Not having to have enough interesting things to do. So feeling bored. All these sides of feeling unfulfilled.
Yes.
And I want to solve it because I'm suffering.
Right.
Yes.
Right. So that's right. No, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
And well, I know some of the answer. Just be in the now. Then here, but I'm always somewhere else, and I want to live up to my expectations, someone other's expectations, and there's so many assumptions I know about it.
Yeah. So that be in the now thing, like that sounds quite tricky. And
Yeah.
I mean, in some ways, but like what actually does that really mean? But it sounds like what you recognize. So as you recognize, oh, there's this problem and there's this lack of fulfillment, and it's in my relationship life and it's in my work life. So all these places, right? How do you feel? Like, what are you in touch with as you recognize that?
Some constriction in my core, in my belly and plexus and heart and chest. It's right here.
Some kind of constriction.
And empty at the same time. It's very empty.
Okay, so there's something quite unpleasant. So what you know for sure is that with these circumstances, what it's bringing up in you is an emptiness and a constriction.
Yeah.
That's what we got so far.
And right? Wanting to go away from it.
Exactly. And wanting to get away from that state. Now, where the tricky thing is that can then feel very compelling, and you think, well, I need to go and find a partner or get a more interesting job and all of those things. And it's not that those are bad things to do, right? But in a sense, the direction that you could look into is first to get curious about, well, what is this emptiness? What is this constriction? I know it feels horrible. It's not a good feeling at all. But what is that, right? Well, what if I let myself go into that and find out about that? Let that open up a bit. So it's not so much exactly just a case of like, oh, well, just be in the moment and all of that. But it is a case of feel into what the problem is bringing up in you and unpack that a little more, kind of.
Yeah. Yes, you know, when you do that, I recognize that, and it feels like a very big topic.
Yes, exactly. Right.
Yes.
So we're not going to sit here and solve that in like a 3-minute inquiry, right? But you know, I mean, you've got two very important elements of it. You know, there's a contraction, and you know, there's an emptiness.
Yeah.
So to kind of, and when the time is right, to really hang out with that emptiness. Probably the contraction is a reaction to the emptiness, right? Some kind of contracting around it. Maybe you'll find out. And then to kind of explore the emptiness directly, right? To let that open up. And, you know, then you will find out from there. The whole perspective on things may change.
Yeah. I have made a start with my private teacher, yes.
Perfect. Yes, that's a very good one to take to your teacher. Yeah.
Well, it was nice to inquire into it. So thank you.
Right. Yeah, you're welcome. Great. Thank you for sharing that. It's a great example of, you know, seeing where we're coming from in relation to the problem. And then we have Ina. Hi, Ina.
Hi.
To see
Here I am. Actually, it's something that 5 minutes, as I've said before, is for me certainly not enough, because I'm a talker. And anyway, now I'll try to be brief. But it's connected to what I worked through with my inquiry partner. And I made a quick note about, it's about saying goodbye. And I'll say goodbye to my friends, anybody who comes here and goes, and anybody I do things with, and standing at the door and waving, look back. And it's connected with my childhood, when my father left without asking me, without saying goodbye. He took his own life, and when I was young. And that is what has, and I'm beginning to see this more and more, and other people confide in cases of divorce, that they actually have the same thing with their father or their mother, who just leaves without accepting. And now I've realized that where this comes from, and I never thought of it that way, that like last night I went to have a meal with my son and his 2 children, and then I left. I said, Granny is going, and that's okay. And they didn't have time because they wanted to do something else. And then one of the little girls hit me over the head. She is 3 with some piece of something. And I wanted to teach her to stop, don't do that. And I think that's okay, because a 3-year-old should not hit me over the head, but I should have made such a point of it. And say sorry, look at me, and I'm leaving. And my son interfered and said, Mom, you don't ask a 3-year-old to say sorry. I think I would, but maybe not with him. I had expected support. But the thing is about this saying goodbye, that I realized, and actually had a word with my oldest daughter, that she said this emphasis on saying goodbye and getting the attention of anybody, looking in the eye even, and as if it is the last time. I might never see you again. You might never see me again, which is true, but it's not within my power. And I realized that I'm the small child is forcing, I wrote that down quick, forcing other people to act like I wish. And this friend of another friend of my daughter, he hardly says goodbye. I say, Erin, are you leaving? Bye, bye-bye. That's the way he wants to leave. He's a lovely man. People, nothing wrong. I don't like.
So then it sounds like what you're doing is then getting in touch with, so that's the problem, but to notice really when people say goodbye, or when there's that moment for them to say goodbye, what is it that's actually happening here, right? What are you doing within you at that moment? Yes.
With me, it's a deep, deep pain that my father left, and I think he should have asked me. He shouldn't have done it. Well, he was a bit off, and maybe it's the right thing, and he left.
So really making space in your inquiry then for that part of you.
Yeah.
Kind of stay close to her, to that young part of you.
Yeah.
Who's hurt about it, might be angry, all the...
Well, actually, I do that with a private teacher I have, but the new realization was that actually I want to force. I'm like a child. I'm like tramping on the floors and saying, "You must say goodbye the way I want it." That is the thing I discovered after, because I've gone into this. It governs my life.
Right. So this is that's such a great example, So, what that shows is this thing that can look like a problem, and you've dealt with it before, right? You've dealt with it before, and it led to hurt, and you dealt with it before, and it led to anger. But now it's coming up, and it's bringing up this part of you that wants to make them do what you want.
Exactly.
Right. So there's some new quality emerging in you.
And I'm so happy this happened, because I had never looked at it, felt it this way. I'm like a little child, like my little granddaughter, forcing other people. And I blame them for not doing it. And I put it, say, I look at you when you're leaving. And I'm okay, but...
Beautiful. So that's really great. So you see how this problem is actually a doorway to something new that's opening up in you.
It doesn't mean people
don't
love you.
You seem quite happy about it.
Yes, I'm really happy. I realized that I am this stamping on the floor little girl. You must look at me in my eyes because that is the way I want it. Nothing to do with my father, that he should look me. But I'm so happy I stayed for the, I'm so happy I came anyway. I went this evening. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, you're welcome, Nina. Very welcome. That sounds great.
Yes.
Yeah, getting in touch with something new, some new angle.
Right, a new angle.
Yeah, that's what makes inquiry so interesting, right? We think, oh God, it's the same issue again, but it isn't. It's like something.
It's a new angle.
Okay, lovely. Jonathan, quick one.
Yeah, I'll be brief here, but what came up in my inquiry, and I was sort of interested, is how constricted I've become with problems, and I was just I thought, well, what if what if they're problems, and you go like, wow, I have a problem, I need to solve it, and you go into it with a sense of like almost joy, rather than just a sense of constriction.
Right.
They're going to, there'll be different problems, but yeah, I don't approach it with a sense of like, oh, there's something I need to solve. How can I solve this? And almost like a curiosity and a positive energy to solving that problem rather than the negative energy. So that came up with me, and I'm curious about that.
Yeah, wonderful. I mean, it's a great question. And of course, what you can do is you can, you wonder what you can begin to see that possibility, like, oh, I mean, maybe I could approach this with, with curiosity and joy and energy, kind of steadfastness, all kinds of qualities could come into engaging with the circumstance or with the problem.
Right.
It doesn't. Something else comes up that feels the way that it feels. And so then, in a way, you can get curious about that. So what is this that comes up, right? That really isn't like that. Like, how come I'm experiencing it in such a negative way? Means there's some part of you coming forward that's feeling it in that negative way. Right? So the more clearly you can discover what that is, get in touch with that, the more you can open it up. And then you will more naturally, like your curiosity will just naturally be there to find out. Right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
So I say that because, of course, then it can be tempting to go, okay, well, I can see that I could do it this other way. So I'm going to try and make myself be more like that. Right. And, you can try that out, but until you recognize and, in a sense, digest and see what it is that's in the way, right? What the part of you that gets activated is that's finding it so constricting, right? That's what you want to find out. What is it that makes it so constricting? And right, that'll be interesting to discover.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, great, thanks. Good, everyone. I think that's kind of bringing us close to time. So it is an interesting area. I hope you sort of find some value in continuing to look into things that you might be tempted to think of as problems. And to be clear, I think it's really worth saying, life is full of problems. Life really is. There's always going to be problems, right? Problems. I don't think anybody escapes problems. Challenging circumstances, challenges to the body, to our minds, to our hearts, to our everything. The problems are part of life. But what we can really do something about is finding out where we're meeting them from, trying to kind of discover the real parts of us that can meet our problems and find out what's in the way. And what is it that makes it seem so difficult or problematic? So, some invitation, something that you can continue exploring. So thank you for coming along. Lovely to be with you again. We will be doing this again in about a month's time, I think, in September, and I look forward to seeing some of you there. If you found this useful, please feel free to let other people know about it. You can subscribe to the YouTube channel. We've actually got them all sort of showing up there at Dive In Inquiry on YouTube. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to post them there. I certainly will read and try and respond to anything that gets posted there. And I wish you rich explorations until we meet again. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you, Don. Bye for now.
Thank you, John. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Don. Thank you all.
Thanks, Dom. It's great.
Welcome.